Welcome to the shit show, Mike's edition. Life's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright insane. And that's exactly what we dive into here. No scripts, no filters, just raw, unfiltered conversations about the chaos we all go through, from personal struggles to insane life events. Hot takes, and real talk. Nothing here is off limits. If you're ready for a wild ride filled with laughs, brutal honesty, and stories that'll make you say, "What the fuck?" then buckle up and hit the subscribe button because this is the shit show. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. So, I just wanted to take just a minute to introduce this season. This season is season 2025, the year of no holds barred. This season, we are diving deep into the real, the ridiculous, and the downright mind blowing. You can definitely expect candid conversation where no topic is off limits. We're talking the good, the bad, and the straight up bizarre. You can also expect some epic guests. Now, I'm not promising industry pros or everyday legends. I am promising, however, some amazing group of people that I consider friends to help me along this journey of podcasting with you guys. You can also expect some hot takes and a lot of brutal honesty. If you're looking for sugar-coated opinions, you're in the wrong place. So, with that being said, today's episode is January 2025, and it was a month from hell. So let's get started. So today's episode definitely begins on the heavier side of things, and it was a very chaotic beginning to 2025. I had six people in my family to pass away unexpectedly, old age, cancer, whatever the case may be. It was still a very emotional roller coaster for me. Um, anybody's passing is emotional and traumatic, but six, like, God bless. So I've not even begun to process or grieve, I guess, any of them because it's been one right after the other, after the other, after the other. And it just was a lot. So I lost my best friend, my grandfather, both of my uncles, my brother, and a grandmother. And each of these losses just drained me. Like I had no motivation to do anything, no gumption to even get out of the bed most of the days. I didn't want to do simple housework items like putting the dishes away or laundry. It was just really, really rough. Um, and as I said before, it's not like I've even been able to start the grieving process. I mean, I in a sense, I have grieved a couple of them because of the nature behind their passing. Like my grandfather and my uncles, for example. Um, my grandfather was a very, very bitter man. Um, he was very angry most of my life, and I did not have the greatest relationship with him as I wish I would have. But I am thankful and blessed that he is in a better place, that he is no longer angry, he is no longer bitter, and that's what brings me peace and comfort in that aspect of things. My uncles, my uncles were beautiful people. They were God's gift to earth. They were the kindest individuals that I had ever met, and nobody that ever had anything to do with or interacted with ever had a crossword to say about either of them. They are going to be missed for sure, but they are no longer in pain. And that's what brings me comfort, knowing that they are no longer in pain and then they're no longer suffering. Um, my best friend, on the other hand, that one took me for a loop. Um, my best friend was also my barber, and we spent about a decade or so, um, really closely, to the point where we could sit over here and not talk for months, and we'd pick up the phone and it's just we'd pick up a conversation like we just dropped it yesterday. Um, I remember sitting in his chair one day and I looked at him and I was like, I'm not paying for this, right? And he was like, girl, I already know. I wasn't expecting you to pay for a haircut. And we laughed, and it was the funniest thing. Um, but that one definitely hit me a little on the harder side for the sheer fact that I wasn't expecting it, didn't see it coming. Um, and that one threw me for a loop. Um, my brother passing as well threw me for a loop because my brother committed suicide. And a lot of people that are really close with me don't realize that that particular instance and situation took me the longest to get out of because it threw me back to when my husband committed suicide. Um, so that one took me a minute. That one's still taking me a minute to kind of get over. Um, I'm no longer in the stage where I'm associating all of the actions that I had to take in regards to the night that my husband passed away with the same actions that took place whenever my brother passed. I'm no longer physically seeing myself in my house when my husband passed away. So I'm no longer visualizing that event all over again, which is a blessing. Because there for a minute, I could sit here and stare into space, and that's all I saw was that evening all over again. There were days where I couldn't necessarily sleep because um, that's all I dreamed about was that night all over again, and that was a recurring dream for weeks. Um, so I'm no longer associating the two. I am now disassociated as far as those two instances are concerned because they are not identical. They are not the same person. They are not the same aspect. They are not the same situation. Um, but it took me a minute to get to that realization and to get to that footing. Um, all of this has taught me that life is too short. Life is forever. It is not the tangible um, thought. It's not a tangible definition. Forever in our minds and from when we are taught what forever is it is forever and ever and ever, and that's not the case. And it took me a long time to realize that when my husband and I got married and we said until death do us part forever and always, that our forever was only a year. So our forever had an end date, it had an expiration, it had a time's up aspect to it. Um, and I miss him every day. I'll sit here in the bed some days and I'll just have a conversation with him because in my mind, and what gets me through the day is I know that he can hear me and I know that he's watching and listening and around here somewhere. And whenever I can't find my keys, I sit over here and I yell at him and I tell him to put them back. 10 minutes later, I magically found my keys. So, with that, um, losing someone and grieving and the process that is required, there's no how-to guide, there's no step by step. Yes, there's steps because based off of psychology and the researchers that have sat over here and researched the brain and researched the mind and all this other extra stuff have put together some how-to guidebook, but it's not an end all be all because some days I'll sit over here and I'll be thrown back into the anger stage. I'm mad that he left. I am infuriated with the fact that he left me here by myself. And some days I can't cope with that. Some days I get so mad that all I want to do is get in my car and go for a drive and listen to my music too loud and not pay attention to the speed limit. Not because I plan on hurting myself or because I plan on hurting somebody else, but because that's what gets my racing thoughts to calm down and to slow down. Um, but grief in and of itself is a process that takes time. And a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of people want to try to rush the process because they just want to get it over with. Oh, the person died. Okay, well, yes, I'm mad that they died. I accept the fact that they're gone. That's not how it works because your brain can accept it, but your heart has to accept it in order for it to not hurt as much. Um, and disclaimer, by no means am I any professional. I do not work in any psychological field. I do not work in any medical field. Um, these are my own opinions and based off of the readings that I have done and the research that I have conducted. So again, these are my own opinions. Um, so because of all of the loss in the month of January, obviously, I needed to take a step back and press pause on work. Um, my decision to step away from my work and why it was necessary was I was starting to feel as though I was not being productive. I did not feel as though I was living up to my potential as an employee. And I did not feel like I was able to put my best foot forward because of everything that was going on personally in my life. Um, I am not guilty. I don't feel any guilt for taking the time away from work. I don't necessarily feel any remorse. I feel as though it was necessary, so that my own mental health would be able to withstand the chaos that comes with my job. Um, um, I kept in contact with my boss. Hey, this is an update. Hey, this is what's going on. Whatever the case may be, my job is secure. I have a job. I'm going back to it next Monday, February the 10th. And I realize that when I get overwhelmed, this was completely unexpected, first of all. Nobody expected six deaths in the family. Nobody. So one 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 death I can handle. I can prioritize my grief. I can compartmentalize my feelings, and I can make sure that my job is done. Six, I ain't got enough compartments. There's not enough space in my filing cabinet up in my brain to compartmentalize six deaths and still be able to function appropriately at work. There's just no way. So taking a step back from work was a very hard choice, but it was a necessary pause that I tremendously needed. Um, I want to take a minute to reflect on mental health. Um, Growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of stigma was instilled in myself. I'm speaking solely on myself, and I'm not speaking for the entire millennial group or Gen Xers or Gen Zs or whatever y'all want to call yourselves these days. I don't care. I'm speaking completely based off of my own experience. So growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, mental health and the stigma that surrounded it was very abnormal. And it was almost like it was a bad thing. Um, Growing up and moving into my 30s, I've started to come to realize that it is not a bad thing. It is okay to not be okay. Um, and the reason that it's not okay is because everybody has a bad day. Everybody. Nobody on this earth is a perfect human soldier or humanoid or robot of any sort. Everybody has feelings, everybody has emotions, and it is okay to have a bad day. My bad day just seemed to have lasted the month of January. And that's okay. Because whenever you sit over here and you give 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 until you have nothing left, you have to recharge yourself. You have to pour back into yourself in order to regain the energy, the strength, the gumption, the willpower, the knowledge, all of that to keep going on. Because if you don't take time for yourself and if you don't pour back into yourself, you're going to pour yourself dry. And then what are you going to do? You're going to be me taking a month off from work whenever you really can't afford it to pour back into yourself to get you to the point where you've got enough in your cup so that you can keep going forward. I'm also going to take this time to mention that if anyone listening knows of or is having thoughts of harming yourself or someone else, it's not the end. Your story's not finished. Um, there are resources, there are people, there are phone numbers, there's so much out there for you to get the help that you need, to talk to the person that you need to have a hug. Do not ever think that ending it all is going to solve anything, because it's a temporary, it's a permanent fix to a temporary problem. All problems are temporary. So if you know of or are someone that has thoughts of suicide, please, please, please reach out to 988. Trained professionals are only a phone call away, and they are there to listen and help and guide you in the direction that you need to go into. A lot of us feel helpless. A lot of us feel done and numb and tired. And it's not a physical tired. And those that I'm speaking to know exactly what kind of tired it is. But it's not your time, and your story is not finished. So, again, if you know of or are someone that have thoughts of suicide, please reach out to 988. You can always DM me directly. I am definitely an advocate and a lifeline for you to reach out to. Um, Again, my husband passed away from suicide along with my brother. So I have extensive resources in regards to suicide prevention and education on that topic. Now, to add insult to injury, I have to move. Now, I don't necessarily know if this is going to be a fresh start or if it's just adding more to the chaos. I'm being optimistic and positive and thinking that it is a fresh start, and trying not to think of it as just adding more chaos and adding more insult to injuries. But the stress of moving on top of everything else that has happened in the month of January was the icing on the cake for me. Um, I found out 2 weeks ago that I had to move. And that was after finding out that my brother had committed suicide and my grandmother passed away and all of the deaths and yada da da da. Um, so that one was the icing on the cake, and that just kind of solidified the fact that I was out for the rest of the month. I was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. I need to rest. I need to recharge. I need time away for me because I can't deal with this anymore. Um, this was completely unexpected. It came out of nowhere. I was not expecting to move. I had not planned on moving. Um, I thought about it, but there was no solidified plan in motion. So, because this was an unexpected turn of events, I have to pack up my entire loft, put 90% of my stuff in storage, and crash at my mom's house for a couple of months in order to get myself financially straight. I cannot stand ing and the emotional toll that it takes on one person to pack up and start all over is it's a lot. You don't realize how much stuff you actually have until you have to pull it out of all of the cabinets, all of the drawers, all of the cupboards, and put it into boxes. You have no idea how much stuff you have. And the physical toll, let's not even get started on that because the physical toll, packing up everything, moving it all by yourself, that's exhausting. But there are some silver linings. There are. Because starting over means, first of all, I'm not starting over. I'm not because I'm not I'm not leaving this chapter with just my clothes and my dog and my cat. I'm leaving this chapter with all of my stuff, my furniture, my dog, my cat, all of my things. I'm closing out one chapter to open and begin another one. So there are some silver linings to this. It's just at the time, I didn't see those silver linings. I just saw insult to injury, if I'm being honest. So, some takeaways from the chaos that was January was in order for new life to begin, one life must end, whether that be the life of a relationship, the life of a loved one, the life of a friendship or a bond or whatever the case may be. Life of a relationship has to end before new life can be brought in. With that being said, from losing everybody that I lost to taking the time off from work that I needed to moving on top of all of this, my life was closing out a much needed chapter that needed to close in order for a brand new chapter to open and start. And I'm optimistic and hopeful that the new changes coming and the transition that are taking place are going to be fruitful and beneficial because I'm at the stage in my life where I want peace and joy and bliss, whatever that looks like. On the next episode of The Shit Show, we're going to be checking in and talking about the month of February that we are currently in. This podcast is going to be a once a month podcast only for right now. I want to encourage each and every one of you to embrace the chaos and obviously find humor in the madness because at the end of the day, you only get one life to live. And I apologize for trauma dumping on this very first episode, but I wanted to bring in a raw sense to this show. That way, you guys knew that this was a safe space to talk about anything and everyone. With that being said, guys, I am going to go ahead and sign off for now, but do not forget to subscribe on Spotify and Apple Music because this show is going to be exclusive to Spotify for now. And then hopefully here in the future, it will be available on Apple Podcasts as well. With that being said, again, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Shit Show, Mike's Edition. I look forward to seeing you all on the next one. Bye.